The problem that our group would like to focus on is the maternal death rate in South Sudan. South Sudan has the highest maternal death rate in the world. The Small Arms Survey reported 1 in 7 South Sudanese women will die in pregnancy or childbirth, often because of infections, hemorrhaging, obstructed births, or a lack of access to healthcare facilities. Information provided from WHO stated the main reasons for maternal death worldwide are severe bleeding, pre-existing conditions, pregnancy-induced high blood pressure, abortion complications, severe bleeding, infections, obstructed labor, and blood clots. Our group investigated how these complications play a role in the high mortality rate of mothers during pregnancy and childbirth that are specific to South Sudan, which complications are most commonly seen in South Sudan, and we looked to find interventions that would lessen this rate. In our early research of South Sudan, there are quite a few reasons that we found that South Sudanese women have such a high mortality rate compared to other nations worldwide. South Sudan has unique circumstances because of some of their cultural practices. According to the Christian Health Association of Sudan, a major problem for women and girls is the common practice of early marriage, with girls as young as 13 years old marrying much older men, often becoming a second or third wife. There is currently no law to protect young girls from this practice, or no minimum age to marry in the nation. These early marriages result in pregnancies before girls are physically mature, putting them at risk for obstructed labor and other complications. The South Sudanese government is overwhelmed with competing social, political, and economic development priorities, and they have no definite strategies to embrace the importance of ensuring that girls delay marriage and pregnancy and enroll and stay in primary education. As a result, young girls do not know how to delay pregnancies until their bodies are ready to carry and deliver a child. And even adult women in South Sudan have little knowledge of how to safely space pregnancies. The main direct causes of maternal death, accounting for up to 80% of cases in Africa, are obstetric hemorrhage, sepsis, pregnancy-induced hypertension, obstructed labor and ruptured uterus, and complications of unsafe abortion. 3 causes, hemorrhage, sepsis, and eclampsia, account for a vast majority of the deaths. Some indirect causes account for 20 to 25% of maternal deaths and are attributable to illnesses aggravated by pregnancy. These include anemia, malaria, HIV, AIDS, diseases of the heart, lung, liver, or kidneys, and ectopic pregnancies. Another determinant is poor access to quality maternal health care services because of geographical terrain and poor roads. We have seen worldwide that having skilled doctors and midwives working within a supportive health system is the most important factor in keeping women healthy and safe in pregnancy. We see in South Sudan a very inadequate number of health workers such as doctors, midwives, and labor and delivery nurses. This is the major underlying cause of maternal mortality in South Sudan.
An overview of our intervention. In thinking of interventions to help the Southern Sudanese women and to prevent having so many maternal deaths, we came up with the idea of sending doctors and health educators to help. I think that many times people, in trying to help others and to offer support, they will just send aid and supplies, but the biggest problem with that is the people won't always know what to do with the supplies, or they won't know how to prevent further problems. So with this, our group was kind of trying to use the idea of give a man a fish and he will eat for a day, teach a man to fish and he will eat forever, and incorporate that into our intervention. And so we came up with the intervention of sending doctors and people to teach the Sudanese women and the locals about several of the common problems that have occurred and how to better prevent those problems. So with this intervention, there would be an educational side incorporated, and that could benefit many women and their newborn babies as well. The program would be having doctors and midwives or nurses travel to Southern Sudan and teach hospitals and clinics about the proper techniques that would help to save women's lives. It would take money in order to send them to Southern Sudan, as well as providing the medical materials that would help in the intervention. So that was our intervention that we kind of came up with in order to help with all these maternal deaths that are happening in Southern Sudan. And of course there would be more to it, but I think that sending people to help them would be the best, because a lot of people don't always know about how to prevent those problems from happening. So by teaching, they can do a lot more with that.
Why our intervention will solve the problem. There are several things that could help solve the maternal mortality rate. One of which is sending doctors to help the people. Another is to send doctors and health educators to teach the people how to do it for themselves. Our group chose the latter. Our intervention will solve the problem in two ways. First, it's the whole give a man a fish and he will eat for a meal, but teach a man to fish and he will eat forever theory. We wanted to have the people taught so they can practice good health practices while the doctors are not there. The reason for this is that it would be very expensive to send doctors to places that they need to be sent. Because of this huge expense, it would be very hard to continually fund that program. It would be more cost-effective to send doctors and health educators to teach not only the people, but the doctors as well. In our lessons, in our class, we have learned the value of education, especially the education of women. With this new knowledge that the people will have, they can share it with their children, and so on and so forth. Thus, our intervention would be a more permanent fix. Second, as a group, we decided that we would make it even cheaper by sending nurses and midwives in the places of doctors. Because the nurses get paid less than the doctors do. Because it would be cheaper, we would be able to send more medical personnel to teach the people than just one or two. Thus, our intervention would solve the problem because more people would be taught than just a few. The more people who know basic health techniques such as washing hands and proper food preparing techniques, the fewer rate of illnesses, then hopefully meaning less chances of a pregnant woman getting sick. And that is why our intervention will solve the problem.
How we will go about implementing our intervention in a specific region of the world. One of the biggest concerns and factors in helping to make our intervention work is financing it, so that we could send doctors out to Sudan. One way that we could make it work is by implementing programs, by creating relationships between hospitals and clinics in Southern Sudan and hospitals in the United States. By creating this relationship, this will allow the hospitals a kind of responsibility to start financing grants or donations to fund trips for the doctors, midwives, or nurses from their hospitals to their sister hospitals in Sudan. So by doing this, it would be creating this relationship between the hospitals that will allow donations and like funds to come so that doctors will want to go to Sudan and help out. There's always a hope in creating an intervention that people will volunteer and go free, but sometimes that's not always the case. Doctors are busy and there's many things going on, and so a lot of them will want to be paid as they go out to these places, so that's kind of where some of the donations and grants will kind of come from. They'll be paying the doctors and also paying for the supplies as well. There may be some that would volunteer, but in trying to not rely directly on that alone, creating relationships with hospitals will allow us to kind of finance that trip and help with medical supplies for the women of southern Sudan and kind of help with our intervention